So, welcome to Morningstar Journal News. My name is Daniel Emmanuel, and today we have with us a special guest that is going to talk to us and share with us a little bit about cybersecurity. This is Brandon Logan. Nice to have you here, Brandon.
Good to be here, Daniel.
And, well, can you share with us a little bit of where your experience comes from?
Sure. So I've been doing cybersecurity for about 17 years or so. And I was doing it basically when it wasn't really a thing. It was just part of IT. But it's funny because my experience, it was mainly led by the Lord. I just needed a job, just a typical husband and guy. And I'm like, Lord, I need some money. So I happened to know some friends from college, and I majored in religious studies, but I needed a job, met them. They had recently started an IT company. And so I started working with them. They didn't know anything really. And then I started learning a little bit at the time. And the Lord actually, when I was praying, like, Lord, what is my calling? Where is my place in the market? And he told me, he called me to cybersecurity. So I was like, okay, and didn't think much of it. And since then, he helped me to gain credentials and knowledge and start to be in like key roles where I didn't know it, but it started building and adding. And then now, based on my previous roles, like I'm definitely in a big place or a great place to understand a larger perspective of cybersecurity. So I've been able to work at a few Fortune 100 companies, and the Lord will help me to benefit the company, and by just the wisdom of the Spirit, and then just operating in integrity. And basically, I've done things that people would think, I had a different background than I did, but I let them know it's only by the Lord helping me. So like I've been able to, I wrote the incident response plan that was used at a government organization here in North Carolina. That was a God thing. I wrote the enterprise policy for a Fortune 100 company in the energy sector. And it was just amazing, other things too, but it's where God had just placed me there, and he helped me to benefit the company. At the same time, I was exalting his name to say, hey, I'm just a guy with Jesus. Do you know him? So that's kind of my background.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you sent us some of the roles you have been in, like tech support, security architect, lead security operations center analyst, and right now you're working in the financial sector as an information security consultant for a major firm. So
Right.
that's amazing that you've been able to glorify God, and that God has been glorified through you. So do you have any story, a specific story of how the Lord has used this particular gift and talent that he has given you to impact somebody for him, for his glory?
Sure. So I found that the Lord, a lot of times, he kind of places me like a Joseph, to where I'm not the main guy. I don't have the title, but then I have influence with the main guy. And, I'm always just down to earth guy, just like I am right now. And I take my job seriously. I try to be very professional and effective, but I just talk normal. And so the Lord will allow me to have favor and a door with typically like the owner of a company or a high leader, something like that. And of course, I don't take it lightly, but I'm like, Lord, I want to represent you well. I want to make sure that I express what you want me to share. So in one of these times, I was working at a small information security firm, and I knew the owner of the company. And so the Lord gave me words for him, and I wasn't intimidated by the owner because, I was like, Lord, I'm responsible and I'm going to be held accountable by you. So I would just share certain things with the owner, and he was like floored that I would do that. And he knew that basically I wasn't trying to get recognition or anything. So the owner began to even ask me questions about like spiritual things and certain stuff in his life. And so I had that opportunity to say, hey, I want to pray for you, or I was praying for you and I felt this or that. And I knew that he really received that. And so even to this day, like we're still friends. And I know that he actually has gone further in the Lord, partially, because of time that we shared together. So that was kind of cool.
Wow. So you have had opportunities because the cybersecurity, I imagine, is close to the top you need to be close to the top guys to understand the threats of the company and explain to them and all that stuff.
Definitely.
So you told us that you have worked with the government organizations to help them with cybersecurity, and we kind of wanted to know what was your take on the 2020 election fraud claims, and what do you think about it, and what do you see as a cybersecurity professional in what happened with the elections?
Sure. Well, so for the past, I would say at least decade or so, it has been a known fact that other nations have been trying to interfere with the voting process. One thing that I've heard FBI resource mention, he said when it comes to China and Russia, that China is attacking and trying to destroy our economy, and Russia is trying to destroy our democracy. And so it was Russia. Russia was one of the main ones that was trying to interfere with the elections process, and it was known they did that in the 2016 election as well as 2020. I don't really know as far as which way they were trying to swing it.
Yeah.
But either way, like it's significant that they are trying to interfere with this country's elections and government. So they're just one of the ones. And so basically, as far as the cyber side, they try to get into the systems and either stop votes or maybe alter the way that they vote. So that is a major area that we've got to be concerned about and make sure you've got protection.
And can you explain to us and to our viewers, like, how or where in the process they can get in, or how they can alter, like in simple terms, how they could alter the result?
Sure. Now, I have not actually gotten all the detailed information about the voting systems, but just in a general sense and the way that cybersecurity works. So if you have any kind of software that is running, then there's the potential that something could happen. And so that's why it's so important that the software that's running on, our phones or whatever it is, that it is written and it works in a secure fashion. So, so the first part is the software itself, right? So let's say in your computer, you're running some software, but nobody can get to your computer because you're sitting at it like physically, right? So you're doing what you're doing, but like if you're not connected to the internet, nobody can do anything with it. But once you connect to the internet, now you've got the whole world essentially that can reach your computer. And if they can get to your computer, then they can try to interfere with the software. So that's basically where it comes. If the software is internet accessible, then you have all of these hackers. And I don't know if you're going to get to this later, but, like with Russia, they have, I don't know how many millions of dollars that they use with their large organization where they have a dedicated force that is strictly, the objective is to hack and to hack whatever the target is. So if the target is the United States of America, then that's what they're focusing on. So if you think the normal hacker, let's say like you or me, we may think, well, I can get $1,000 or something. We may spend a little time, buy some kind of hacking software or whatever that's available, right? And you actually could be somewhat successful, but you have an entire country devoting resources to do this. They have the potential to do a lot. So that's how they did it. And if they're all focused on here, we know the United States of America uses this kind of voting software. They can research the software. They can research the computers and the areas. So without going into too many details, it's not as difficult as you think to get to it, but the software itself probably should have been more secure so that even if someone gets to it, it's not as easy to impact it.
Okay. Yeah, we were actually gonna go to Russia, like in this interview,
Okay.
with because with the Russia-Ukraine situation and all the invasion and stuff, there were a lot of talks about a possible cyber warfare. And well, I was wondering how could that work? Like, how could that look like for normal people and for the U.S. government?
Okay. So if a nation state targets, like, let's just say, our country or Ukraine, then it's based on their objective. Their objective, like in the past, there's been a lot of that's taken place, I know, with the U.S. And one of the targets has been what's called our critical infrastructure. So it could be like our utilities, like energy, it could be, water, transportation, because a lot of those, they're not like high technology as far as advanced in what they use. Some of them use older equipment, older software. So it could be more vulnerable, but then it needs to be better protected. So I know in the US, they've like had a lot of advancements in the protection and security to make sure that they close it off more than they have in the past. So let's say, Russia is attacking that, then they would go directly there. It wouldn't affect us as much. But in that instance, if you are associated with their target, then now, even though you're not the target, a part of their strategy may be to reach people who are connected with the target. Because
Let's say employees.
yes,
Example.
employees. So in any case, you heard the term the weakest link of a chain, right?
Yeah.
Like, chain's only as strong as its weakest link. So let's say the company puts billions of dollars in protection. And so they try, the bad guys, they try to attack through the internet, they try to attack through the system, they can't get there. They can't crack the password, they can't crack all these protections with encryption and multi-factor, all that, can't do it. However, there's a person like me, and let's say I work for the company and I'm on social media and I say, hey, I'm a member of this government organization and here's my rank, and you know what I mean? Or maybe on LinkedIn and I'm posting my resume and it shows like, oh, he works in this division and that's what we're trying to get, something like that. So however it is, they get information on a person and they're like, it'll be a lot easier for me to reach this person and maybe get them, and they're unsuspecting, and now they're able to get in where we can't get in ourselves. So, and that's still today the number one threat vector, or the number one way that an attack is initially successful is through the person.
So taking all this into account, do you think the U.S. could be ready for a cyber warfare with, let's say, Russia or North Korean hackers?
I think so. I think they could be ready. However, I don't know a lot about like the plan as far as our government strategy and cyber warfare. However, if you start doing that, you can't really stop the other country from doing something to you, right? So once it starts, there's going to be a give and take. And I wonder, like, what is the decision there? Like, do the leaders want to go that route? Because we do have a certain level of exposure here. One of the ones which I was recently on a call with, it was an informational call, but one of the major concerns would be like EMP, electromagnetic pulse, which you've heard about a lot, but that could be effective in a certain number of ways. So if a country, if they chose to launch a weapon that would release an electromagnetic pulse, there's not really much we could do against it. We would have to have the infrastructure and ability to withstand it and to continue to operate. So there are things like that. And I kind of think with our leaders, there may be like an understood thing of like, if you do this to me, I'm coming back to you. But other than that, there's not really anything that is stopping some of these major attacks to hit us.
Wow. So do you have any like practical examples of everyday people of how they have been impacted in these cyber attacks or cybersecurity threats?
Sure. So some of the common ways for the everyday person would be, of course, just the normal hacks and like normal scams where it's not a nation state, it's not even a big organization, it's just one person. And sometimes they call those like script kiddies or, little hackers, where you'd be surprised, but there are areas where you can purchase like hacking software and just use it, just hit the button and it just does stuff.
Wow.
And now that's not the most common way that we're affected, but that's one way. The most common way we're typically affected is through email and through our web surfing. Those are the most common ones. And also I would say through the permissions and information that we release or allow. So like I sign up for, a free trial of a service. And then it says in the fine print, we will use your information, So now they're sending your information to just salespeople. It's not anything malicious, but that information is going. And now you start getting all these emails, getting calls. So that's not hacking, but that's a way that you allow your information to be out there. And the more you allow your information to be out, it exposes it to other stuff. So in that same example, on your phones or computers, if you have certain apps installed, sometimes the apps will ask you for more permission than you need or than it needs. And so saying, you can have all the permission. Sometimes that can be a thing. So that's something that you should be aware of. And like when you're first installing or setting up the configuration, just to say, if you don't need my information, I won't give that. If you don't need access to my camera and to my microphone, no, I don't need to give it that. And that's one of the things with TikTok. Actually, it was pretty well known that TikTok was associated with the Chinese government and stuff like that. And so they actually had it designed in the app to be able to access information. But today people still use it a lot, Yeah. So, but things like that is kind of where we open ourselves up. Now, when it comes to email and web, couple quick rules. If it's email, if you weren't expecting the email and you don't know the sender, then just don't even read it, or delete it, don't respond to it. But when you have an email message and you click on the link, then a lot of times those links could be associated with a part of the attack. And so the link says Walmart, but then if you actually, you can take your mouse or whatever and hover over it, it'll say, instead of walmart.com, it may say something totally different. And so that's like a false thing. And you click on it, you're not going to Walmart, you go somewhere else. And then you enter your information and it's going to the bad guys. So that's one of the ways.
Basically, think twice before you click.
Yes, exactly. And then the other way I would say is sometimes, let's say something that we're trying to use, like a shopping site or maybe a financial site or whatever it is, we try to go and log in and we're like, the site is down. I can't get to it, or I can't view this video. I'm on Netflix, it's not available. Sometimes that is affecting us because it's an attack called a denial of service or a distributed denial of service, where the hackers have attacked like an organization just to try to stop them from being able to function. So sometimes that affects us because we're not able to use the service because it was the target of an attack. And so it knocked them down, which is costing them money because, they're not able to take payments, whatever. And now it affects their reputation and everything. But it affects us because I'm an account holder, I'm a member, and I can't do what I want to do. So that's one of the ways it affects us.
Yeah. And what are some other practical tips that you can, preventive tips that you could give our viewers of how we can better protect ourselves from attacks?
Okay.
Cyber attacks.
I would say, first off, do a little research. You don't have to be a technology expert, but before you buy something, before you just accept it or install like a free app, a free game, do a little research to find out. Just search security of this app or rating or the credit, not credit history, but evaluations of that. And then you'll find out there may be scams associated with it, or somebody may report and say this is unsafe. So that's one thing you can do. You can go to different sites as well. But so that's one, as well as when you are buying certain products, you don't always have to connect them to the internet. So like, today they call it the Internet of Things, like, my refrigerator's on the internet, my microwave, my shoes are connected to, no, not that much. But, just because something is available and you can connect it to the internet, if it's not really something that you want to use and not the purpose behind it, it's best not to do that, because if you're not using it, sometimes it's not secured properly and somebody else may be going around scanning, and they may not be able to get in to your Wi-Fi because, your home internet is protected. It has a password, whatever, but maybe they can get to that Internet of Things and then, your smartwatch or whatever. So try to secure the settings as well. Like when you do buy something, if it has a username and password on it, just real simple, change the password. Like make sure you don't use the default password. So some things like that. From your credit, this is a big one, because one of the big ways is, identity theft. So if somebody gets your information, they may try to fill out for credit applications, stuff like that. You can freeze your credit, which is not negative to your credit score, but it prevents your credit from being used. So you can just contact the credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and you set it up. It takes a little while to set up because it's really significant. But once you set it up, then you can freeze your credit so that anybody else, even you, if you go to try to apply for something, that you can't do it because your credit's frozen. But it's easy to unfreeze it. And that's a way that it stops. So you won't be like, wow, I didn't know about these accounts that were in my name, that were fraudulent. So those are some things.
Wow. So in the financial world, there's also I know that in the financial world with all the credit cards and all this stuff, there's also a world or a window of opportunity for attackers to come into that. How does that play out?
Yes. So
is it any different? I'm saying than browser.
It can be similar. So one of the main ways, and almost always, if it is, they call it a social engineering attack, which means the person isn't really targeting your computer by sending hacking. It's not that. They're not trying to take it over. They're trying to trick you into doing something that they want you to do. So, and social engineering works by trying to gain your trust. So the way they do that, email, phone, they call it vishing, text. So they send you a message, some kind of communication, and they impersonate somebody else. So, somebody contacts me and they say, hey, Brandon, I'm Daniel. Hey, I'm really in a bind. Can you wire me $1,000?
Yeah.
If I think they're Daniel, I'm like, hey, sure, Daniel, anything for you,
Yeah.
And so then I start going through the whole process, and they got me because I did not ensure that it was really Daniel. And so you can take that into all different scenarios. But essentially, that's what happens if it's email. You think you're talking to a company. You think you're talking to the IRS. You think you're talking to an actual agent, whatever it is, and it's not vetted. As well as if they give you a discount or some kind of deal, hey, we'll give you this free, but you know what I mean? So that's one of the biggest ways. And so financially, one of the ones that has been cropping up a lot lately is with Zelle. And it's not Zelle itself, like Zelle, the payment, money transfer system. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It's actually not a problem with Zelle. It's the social engineering part, where I can send you a Zelle request, right? You can just send that to anybody. So I could send someone a Zelle request and say, I'm requesting $500. And so when it gets to you, you would just have to say, no, I decline that. I'm not giving you $500. But sometimes people are actually falling into the trap, and they say, okay, I accept. And they just sent somebody $500. And, you know, so it's not Zelle's fault. It's, you
It's
know, the
people.
person's being misled.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for sharing with us all this information, because it's really important. And I believe, even if like there is a cyber warfare at some point with Russia or with other world power, it's it's important for us, for the community, to know how to be secure, so we are not an easy target to get to something bigger, our companies where we work, or who knows. So thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you
You're
you
welcome.
for watching. You can follow us and you can visit our web page for more information, www.morningstarjournalnews.com. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.